Welcome to our February webinar with SFAR Education and Events Committee. I'm Jeremy Davidson. I'm the chair of the committee this year. And we are delighted to follow up on the heels of our January webinar, which discussed the new laws for 2025. And if you attended that webinar, you will know that the SB326 exterior elevated elements, or also known as the deck or balcony law, generated lots of curiosity and comments and questions. So we decided to make our February webinar dedicated to that topic. So we have about 45 to 50 people who are here now, and that's a great turnout. We're just really delighted to have you here. Our guest expert today is Vincenzo Melchiorre. He is a structural engineer here in the Bay Area. And our goal today is to give agents a level of comfort with the topic. We are not structural engineers, but it is good for us to have at least a basic working understanding of what this new law is, what the path forward is for our buyers and sellers and ourselves and for HOAs. We also want to make sure that we stay in our lane, right? So we're going to get a good amount of information that we can use to advocate for our clients and help them ask the right questions so that they can proceed with their transactions successfully. So the way this is going to be organized, we're going to start with getting some basic knowledge and facts. Then we're going to talk about inspections and what actions people can take and what those implications are from those actions. We'll do a little bit of case scenario discussion, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. If you do have a question along the way, please add it to the Q&A section that should be located at the bottom of your screen. You can click on that and add a question. I will be monitoring that. And when we have the right breaks in the presentation, I will interject with those questions, and we'll probably have a few minutes at the end for some more of your questions. So we have a lot to talk about and not a whole lot of time. So again, thank you for being here, and I will turn it over to Vincenzo.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? Thank you, Jeremy, for the introduction. It's my pleasure to be here. I am a structural engineer. So I'm working in Marine, and I've been a Marine for about 22 years. During my 20 years of experience as in the local engineering space, I have touched many fields, from assessing the structural health of buildings to designing new buildings, seismic upgrades and retrofits for buildings and infrastructure. So to mention some of the clients that I have provided some inspection for is the County of Los Angeles that has more than 3,000 structures to be inspected. NASA Ames campus down in the South San Francisco, and Amazon distribution centers in both California and around the world. I hold a California professional engineering license, a PE, professional engineering, and I have a certification for Cal OES, which is a safety assessment program in case of disasters. On one of the engineers that goes out there to review the safety of the buildings. I also hold a master in civil engineering from my school university in Rome, La Sapienza. So as a kid, I was a Boy Scout, and my contribution to the group was to build stuff. So I built once an overhead platform for camping equipment, and it happened that once I was on it with a friend and moving items. So all of a sudden, the platform kind of gives way, and we started to slide down, and the equipment that was right behind us. There were wooden boxes, metal items, and there was, sliding and tumbling all over. So once we landed, I had like one and a half story below. I had a broken toe, and my friend was just unharmed. So this experience profoundly really marked me as a future structural engineer, and made me appreciate how important safety is when I design. So it is my pleasure to be here. I have the opportunity to interact with you all. Many of you probably recognize this image here on the slide. It is the balcony that was photographed by the local news during the structural collapse of 1995 in Berkeley. So it's a collapse that tragically claimed the several lives, and it changed our approach, the structural engineering approach, and safety with wood elements, and when they are exposed to weather. There is material degradation, and there was also the weight of people that they were hosting a party. So from a happy event, it turned into a tragedy. So I don't know if you ever stop to think about the profound role that you play, that I play as a designer. So we're shaping our business to make a positive impact. The space that we build are not just structures. Those are the places where our lives are unfolding, our family are growing, where the future is shaped. So our building environment is a foundation for a thriving life, and starting is starting right at home. So the state of California now offers us the opportunity to contribute to this dream, and to by prioritizing safety. So just like a responsible parent, the state wants them to assure a safe environment. So the safety is the bedrock of everything else that we have. The role that we are building is not just an optional add-on; is essential. And so whether we're working or living at home or just simply going about it with our lives, safely should be a deep part of our environment. So California has a high standard of quality and safety. We all want to contribute to this, and this is our chance. This is our chance to create a lasting legacy. It become pretty much a cornerstone of this society. Yeah, so I take this opportunity as really an opportunity and a chance to maintain safety everywhere. So sadly, the incident like Berkeley pushed the concerns to the forefront, right? The Senate bill emerges as a direct response to these issues, and it is supposed to be a game changer for all the multi-unit buildings. So we have so it addresses as a check for all the exterior, the EEE, or the exterior element, elevated exterior elements, and it aimed to assess and inspect anything that overhangs outside the structure is exposed to weather. What they wanted to avoid is the sudden catastrophic event. So this is what we want to avoid. This implies that we check anything that can suddenly break, not slowly, but suddenly break. That's why it takes a structural engineer to identify this type of cases. So this Senate bill takes a proactive approach by mandating a regular inspection. regular. And for all the exterior elements. So you're going to see this EEE everywhere, and they call it 3 E's, is exterior elevated elements. Okay, it's just going to appear over and over. The inspections are crucial for catching potential problems early or before they escalate in major hazards, as we were saying. It is important to know that the Senate bill goes beyond just enforcing existing building codes. It specifically addresses long-term vulnerability that can develop in balconies or in decks or in walkways or in stairways. So those are all the parts that need to be addressed and inspected. And so let's talk about timing. So the mandate, there are two bills, the 326 and the 721. They are pretty much identical, but they are just assigned to slightly different units. So the 326 is for condos where there are multiple owners. There is an HOA, for instance, while the 721 is designed for investment properties with multi-units. So there is one owner, rents all the units, and so the 721 is for that one. What are the differences? The first difference is that the 326, the one for the condos, has a return period, a periodicity of 9 years, while the 721 is every 6 years. All right. So let's break down the key components of this Senate bill. It focuses on a regular inspection of balconies, or decks, or stairs, or walkways, and other exterior elements that are attached to the multi-unit dwelling. So these are called the EEE, exterior elevated elements. These inspections must be conducted by qualified personnel with specific credential to ensure the evaluation is correct and in line with the requirements. So the Senate bill emphasizes that the inspector is independent to avoid conflicts of interest of any type. So this means that one, the inspector cannot be affiliated with the local jurisdiction, and also it can be responsible for the repairs as well. This Senate bill applies to multi-unit dwelling with 3 or more units, and they need to be wood frame structures. Now, wood frame structures, sometimes they don't look like wood. Sometimes they look like plaster. Somebody can say concrete. But in reality, what we need to look at is the interior of the structure, which is the part that is carrying the loading, and that one is generally wood. In the Bay Area, anything that is up to like 5 stories to 6 stories is mostly made out of wood. And it defines the EEE as the balcony, decks, porches, stairs, walkways, and their waterproofing system. So if the deck has a waterproofing on top, that would be part of the inspection. And they need to be located 6 feet or above ground, at least. Because if somebody falls from 6 feet, nothing happens. If somebody falls from a floor, 1 floor above the ground, then something can happen, right? The Senate bill mandates regular inspections for this EEE by qualified professionals, as we were saying, every 6 years for the 721 and every 9 years for the 326. What you see there on the photo is one of the typical balconies that I've seen here in Marine. I'm based in Marine. And there were probably like 12 units in this building. They have a kind of a continuous balcony. There are wood joists, there are wood posts, and the post also are part of the inspection. So to ensure a thorough objective assessment of the designability requires the inspector to hold specific credentials. So it needs to be either a licensed engineer, a PE, or an SE. Those are two types of licenses. A licensed architect. It can also be a licensed general contractor, in particular Class A, B, and C5, with at least 5 years experience. Certified building inspector or building official, it could be. So having a qualified inspector with the right expertise provides peace of mind that these EE have been comprehensively evaluated. So I always like to bring up this example where the Senate emphasizes the importance of the inspector independence. This means that the inspector cannot be employed by a local jurisdiction enforcing the legislation or be affiliated with the entity responsible for the repair. I always like to compare with to when we go to smoke check our car. Do you go to a smoke check only or a test only facility or a mechanic? So the mechanic will definitely be interested to find as many parts to change as possible, and most likely will change nothing for. We charge probably nothing for the inspection itself, since they will make their profit during the repairs. So in contrast, the inspector who will perform inspections has no interest in inflating the tab. The inspector are independent and they don't provide design for the remediation. So they don't perform the retrofit as the contractor does. This ensures that the assessment avoids any conflict of interest.
We have a question, Vincenzo, from one of the guests. Would a TIC building, which has separate owners, but just one building that has not been divided into condos in this situation, would that fall under SB326 or 721?
How many units does it have, you said? More than 3?
Ostensibly, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, it does. So if it's divided in condos and then each different owners, yeah, it will fall under the 326 in particular.
It would fall under 326. And then in a new construction situation where it's known that the building is made of steel and concrete and not a wood support, what happens in that situation? Is that building automatically exempt? Do they still have to have an inspection to officially determine that and get some kind of written certification?
Oh, that's a good question. Just right on the point so there are two parts of this question. The first one is when you said there is a new construction, and the second one is steel and other material. So new construction, anything built after 2019 is exempt for this round to the first round of inspections. The first round, but then it enters the 6 or 9 years. At this point, 2019 to 2025, this is 6 years. So it's been already 6 years. So we need to start with the inspection, at least the 6 years inspections, and the 9 years inspections still have 3 years to go ahead. So this answers the new constructions. Then the material used. This Senate bill, it just exclusively applies to wood structures. There are although other inspections that need to be done, but this is just applying to the wood structures.
Okay. And on the topic of inspectors, somebody is asking, is a state certified structural pest inspector qualified to do these inspections?
So specifically, those are considered special inspections. The Senate Bill 326 specifically requires professional engineers and architects, licensed professional engineer and architects to perform the inspection. For the 721, they left it a little bit more open, although those are special inspections, and it is highly suggested to stay with people that know structures. Pest inspectors, they don't have, they have a license for inspecting, but they don't have the knowledge of structures that a structural engineer or an architect will have. Because this is an investigation. So as an investigation, there are always special cases. They need to be figured out as we go. We need to identify what are the critical components of the balcony or whatever element that we are looking at, and really follow the load path. Those are very specific technical concepts that not a realtor or just a regular inspector will ever need to know. But it is out there necessary that we understand how the structure is behaving and where the load's going. Sometimes it's not that clear because we never have the drawings. If we would have had the drawings in our hands, like the structural drawings, we will always know where the load is coming from and where it's going. But when we are there on site, sometimes it's covered and closed with some sealing or some pretty architectural finish that the structure is completely hidden.
So what you're getting at is a pest inspector is not a structural engineer,
No.
right? So does not have the qualifications that the state bill mandates. So if people wanted to find professionals who do this kinds of inspection, chances are if they found a list of licensed, qualified California structural engineers, that might be a good place to start.
Yes, absolutely.
And do you know if the state has put together a list of those professionals, maybe by county?
So yes, the Board of Professional Engineers offers a lookup tool. You can go there and start searching with that tool.
Great.
You will find all the licensed engineers.
Okay, that was another question. And then there's a question, what about apartment buildings that have one owner, that have balconies, probably like the one that you just showed him are in? As in, what about 4 or more units in an apartment building? Are those buildings exempt? Sounds like that. No, they would not be
No, they
exempt.
won't.
They're 3 or
Exactly.
more, and they're wooden.
3 or more, including 3. So anything above 3 wood
Great.
structures.
Okay. Does the new construction exemption apply to wood structures themselves that were added or rebuilt on an existing building after 2019?
So there is the portion has been added after 2019.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if it's been added after 2019, most likely the added portion is self-supported. So the loads is possible. The loads goes directly from the deck down to the ground, independently from the main structure. So the actual load path is still newer than 2019, and the materials used to support that load also is newer than 2019. I would say that that portion doesn't necessarily apply.
Do you think, though, would it be unreasonable to say that if a realtor is working with a seller or a buyer and there's a situation like this where maybe something was added within the last few years, or there's any question at all about the safety, right, that it would behoove the HOA or the seller or even the buyer to obtain a professional structural engineer inspection to determine the safety of that property, and that it would be imprudent for the realtor to make a recommendation based on just the age that something was added or just by their own kind of layman uh, glimpse of the building, right? Wouldn't it make sense that you would defer to a professional inspection?
I, I would say definitely defer to a professional. I mean, why taking the responsibility in a safety situation to say that that is fine and we don't need anybody to look at it. So if there are concerns of any type, you want to bring a professional that is going to tell you, look, you have 10 more years on this, you're going to be fine, or you need to replace a couple of beams, and just get a independent professional, a
Hmm.
specialist for these things. These are delicate, and if something happens, it's generally catastrophic. Also, last week, I received four calls from lenders that they were requiring the special inspection on a condo. And they were saying, look, it looks like there is something kind of weird. The HOA is not releasing this inspection. They just say that this condo in the specific is fine, but they're not releasing the full inspection. We want to know what's on the inspection before we invest and we release the funds for completing the deal. So they're starting to get involved as well. Those are lenders. So it's specifically in your circle, in it's one of the parts of your process. Um, Everybody's starting to request this type of things. It's a matter of safety.
One more question, then we can continue.
Yeah.
Does San Francisco Section 604 apply to only wood framed and wooden balconies, or must it be done for all buildings? This is completely separate from the SB 326.
Oh
Yes?
yeah, but
Oh,
it's
wow.
extremely close. It's extremely close to the 326. I understand why they're asking. So this is to bring everybody up to speed because it's possible. So the section 604 or 601, I know which one we're talking about, but it relates to apartments and to units in San Francisco only. Okay, not in the whole Bay Area, just in San Francisco. Then it relates to exit facilities, exit elements as well. So the emergency exit that we generally have on the 4 or 6 units building in San Francisco is they're made out of wood, they're exterior, they're in the backyard. All the exits and the stairways and the landings where people kind of hang out during a party or they have a drink out there or smoke a cigarette. They are always out there. There is always somebody there. So all the exits, they need to be checked. And they have, I think the frequency for that one is every 5 years. Not completely sure about this, but there is a frequency on that one as well. It is independent from this Senate bill that we are talking about today, but it is related to the same elements.
Okay, thank you. And just one more question. Sorry, they're
That's fine.
coming quickly. If it, and we're circling back to something that we did touch on. So if we know that it's a new building
Hmm.
and we know that it is steel and concrete, and there's no wooden structure,
Hmm.
maybe we've seen it with our own eyes and we're looking at the plans. Um, does there still need to be an inspection or a clearance that every 6 years or 9 years? And if not, is there some kind of exemption form that would need to be filled out? Who determines whether it is exempt officially?
Okay. Um, it is great that there is steel or concrete. Um, Sometimes buildings that look like steel or concrete are not steel or concrete. So you want to really make sure that that is still concrete. The way to make sure of this type of detail is having the drawings. If it's a new building, most likely you also have drawings, structural drawings. They are going to show that the structure is not the exterior. The structure is made out of some other material. Okay. What you see at the exterior could be plaster that looks like concrete, but it's not concrete. In the interior, there can be some other material. Okay. Said that. I haven't encountered a specific case because the majority of San Francisco is all construction. I believe that a statement from a specialist can probably, or even just a lawyer most likely, can just to the building department can cover. I haven't done it myself. This is probably how I would go about it. Start with something like that and see what type of reaction the building department has. The building department is not an entity that is perfectly streamlined. Let's make sure that. So there is a lot of personal input and interpretation in what happens inside a building department. It can be sometimes kind of slow, often slow. So we need to be patient. But with this Senate bill inspection, the submission of the results of this inspection need to be delivered to the building department. So it will be out of your plate, out of your table, and the person engaged will need to deliver, present, and submit to the building department.
Okay, let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Sorry, other direction. Here we go. So what are we talking about here is, oh yes, this is, so as we were saying, this Senate bill places a significant responsibility on the building owners of this multi-units building. So as a realtor, understanding the Senate bill is essential for effectively advise your client on the property that comply with the new legislation. So in the next few slides, we can explore the key areas of that impact realtors more in the detail. So here the building owners have several primary responsibility, and here is the background, is the breakdown. So the scheduling regular inspections by a qualified professional every 6 or 9 years, as we were saying before. It does ensure that the monitoring of the EEEs. So, and implementing any necessary repairs based on the inspector findings and adhering to the designated timelines. Their prompt action is crucial to address potential safety hazards. That makes sense. So ensuring ongoing maintenance of the EEEs and regular maintenance help to prevent major issues from snowballing down to major problems. That makes sense as well. And we can discuss the repairs timeline and the consequences for non-compliance, because when we enter this inspection process, we're also entering a series of timeline. So the urgency of repairing of the repairs under the Senate bill depends from the severity of the hazard. They are identified during the process. So for immediate threats, we want to those are the most urgent, of course. So we need to take immediate action. The building owners have about 30 days to apply for the permits, while they have 120 days for, it's 30 days to apply for the permit and 120 days to complete or be near completion of the repairs. So this one is for the most urgent. For non-immediate threats, So we have a slightly longer timeline, so we can apply for repairs in 120 days, so permits for 120 days, and then another 120 days to implement the repairs. Okay, so once the inspection is completed, we enter a timeline: 30 plus 120 or 120 plus 120. There can be significant consequences. Talk about consequences a little bit for the building owners if they fail to comply. There are substantial fines up to $500 per day, per deck on non-compliance. 10 days is $5,000. 30 days is $15,000. Those are big numbers. Possible liens. The local jurisdiction can place a lien on a property if repairs are not addressed. This can prevent the owner from selling. And now we know that also the lenders are getting into this process. Insurance premium. We talk a lot about insurance these days for many many points of view, and they can surely put their weight on this. And possible lawsuits in case of tragedies, but there is catastrophic event and everybody loses on this. So the risk is high. The inspection report, let's talk about the inspection report a little bit. So this, we finished the part that was giving like tools to read the Senate bill. So that was the long part. Now we are going to look at a little bit what it comes out of this inspection. Okay, so what do you have in your hands? So you're going to have an inspection report that has an executive summary. Is the most important part. It's going to highlight what is being found and the deficiencies. There is going to be a summary table. And is going to be divided, is going to be addressed the urgency of any deficiency. And there is going to be a stamp and a signature of a professional. So those are the four most important part of the inspection report. Let's see. Let's look at the, let's go back to this one for a second. If you see the table at the bottom, you will have the location of all the units in the building. For instance, Unit 4 and number 2, Units 4 has items that have been found non-compliant. I can't quite read what we have there, but there is a follow-up inspection, for instance, when the things are not completely clear, and there is something that is slightly bigger than just the element that we are looking at, sometimes a foundation, for instance. Then it was defined as a non-emergency situation. So we entered the 120 days plus 120 days to address it somehow. And then the action. The action in particular, that one was inspect again, probably with other specialists, because we identified that there is a bigger problem than the one that we were looking at. For each unit, in this case, we have the exterior walkways, they are part of the building. You will see again a table with all the elements that have been looked at: the joists, the edge beam, the parapets, the posts, the beams, the girders. So we're going inside the structure. The urgency as applies, the condition, and the recommendation: repair, replace in kind, or just in fair conditions. Let's let it go. This is not important. There are going to be photos of all the parts that have been inspected. In this case, we see exterior walkways just to maintain the subject that we were treating before. There is a girder, there is a dark post. They've all been looked at. This is a building that was built in the 70s. And there are going to be comments. If there is a problem in any of these photos, this photo has highlighted, there is going to be an arrow that points exactly to the comment, to the problem, and the comment is handled by this portion, sorry, this portion up here above the table. So everything kind of links together. You enter with a summary report, the executive summary, and then it drills into the details for each unit if you need it. All right, we are slide 18. This is so for so the outcome of the report is going to identify a scope of work, like what does it need to be fixed. With that scope of work, the owner can hire a general contractor. They can say those are the items that need to be fixed, not beyond that one, just this one. Invite a contractor and provide the contract directly to a contractor. This is completely independent from the inspector to maintain objectivity. Once it's engaged, once the contractor is engaged, the design just if needed, there is a design phase. There's going to be some permitting possibly, and then the repair can start. In a smaller multifamily unit, let's say a building with 6 or 4 units, maybe they are they're selling at that point. Maybe there is some urgency in trying to complete the inspection and read the outcome of the inspection. And it's like all cash, maybe all cash offer. So we have like 2-3 days. At that point, most likely you will need to connect with the HOA and say, hey, is the inspection being performed? Please provide the results of the inspection. Ideally, they will report. With this report, you are going to have a copy and you can use it during the process if you're asked for it. So I'm just trying to give a real world scenario. Sometimes the situations are more complicated. They're more complicated, and it's not just one handrail that needs to be redone, but they're more extensive. So if that is the case, I've been asked to help with the scope of work. Like, let's really define what we need to do. The report itself just highlighted there is a problem, and the problem needs to be addressed. But going from that one to a full scale project, if it's small, it can handle as we just discussed. But if it starts to be bigger, maybe you want to prepare a scope of work. Now,
Vincenzo, I have a question. So let's say an inspection is done and there are deficiencies that need to be corrected. Mm-hmm. And how are the findings of the inspection reported or shared with the city and or county level? Is there a clearinghouse? Like, is there a place where that information is stored? Like we have how San Francisco has the soft story records that are available to us, with an online map function that we can look up. What is the accountability factor with the reporting? And then do you know if we're going to be able to access that either city or county-wide?
Yes, absolutely. So once the report is done, that becomes an official document. The official document needs to be provided to the owner. That is the first thing. When we provide it to the owner, we also, I also give a presentation. There is where all the parties that are interested in this are invited, and they can see the findings. They can be discussed together. Okay, so it's not just a piece of paper. I mean, it is a piece of paper with plenty of photos and descriptions. So the document is self-standing, although there is a presentation that introduces the subject and the problem to all the parties that are involved. That document needs to be stored with the property. However, that is if there is an HOA involved, or if there is, in case of like a smaller multi-unit buildings with 4 and 6 units, the owner needs to have it, and the document needs to be available when is asked. Also, the document it should be reported to the building department. The building department is getting up to speed with this process. So they are refining the tools that they have. It is possible that if we go there and ask the report that we know is being performed, the inspection is being performed, and most likely the report is also being provided to the building department. I'm not completely sure the building department is going to be able to locate that report and provide it to you. So the most reliable is probably the owner. And as a second chance, probably going to the building department and see if they can provide it to you.
And, you know, people on the call here are probably thinking about other things in San Francisco, like underground storage tanks, right? Some brokerages care more than others about whether or not those inspections happen at point of sale. I know in other parts of the Bay Area, we have point of sale requirements for sewer lateral inspection, sidewalk inspection and repair, and there's, you know, tight accountability workflows with documents and involvement with local utility agencies to make sure that there's follow-up and deposits and escrow. So, you know, I'm wondering if some of us out, I certainly am, I'm wondering if the city is going to get that involved with making sure that there's accountability. Do you have any insights on that?
Yes, I do. I generally talk with all the building departments, all the cities, all the counties, and what I saw is this: they ideally don't want to get involved. This Senate bill came out with little to no funds to give to the building departments. It's a state level. It's required that there is a self-reporting with a deadline, and then they put the fines. That's how they want to approach it. They say, you do your work, report what if there is something wrong, and otherwise we're going to fine you.
Understood. So perhaps this might come down to the brokerage level for agents, if they're transacting with a building that's affected or potentially affected. That might be something that we would maybe talk to our sales managers about. But at the very least, we're looking out for our clients, right, and the safety of the building at point of sale. So yeah, it's an interesting dilemma.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you have, I mean, your turnaround time is like ideally like a couple of weeks, right? You get involved in a couple of weeks, you're out. Uh, and ideally, this inspection is already being performed. This is the ideal scenario. If the inspection is not being performed, you say, okay, nobody asked for it. I'm just going to glide through this. But now the lenders are getting involved. So this is starting to drag everybody in. It's a matter of safety. So I think that something needs to be addressed. Early in the process would be ideal because it doesn't take an enormous amount of time to do this inspection. And at the end of the day, also the cost of the inspection is not terrible, especially if you compare it to the repairs. I mean, repairing decks, there is it's always something north of thousands of dollars, several thousands of dollars, depending on how extensive it is. The inspections is $500 per deck. I mean, it can be done quickly.
Great.
Very small in comparison to the risk and the other cost. That's what I'm saying. In any way, if there are bigger conditions, like the old building needs to be sold and you're involved in that type of sale, maybe The problem is a little bit more extensive than the parapet, for instance, that can be handled just with a general contractor that comes in. Maybe there is some structural problem. Then what I've been offering was the owner being the owner representative. So as a person that knows, understands the actual scope of work, create a request for proposal to specialists, to general contractors, and create the team that is going to be independent from the owner representative. So create a scope of work that is very tight on what is needed, and find the team that can provide that type of effort. I've seen this happening in the past. It helped. It sped up the process.
So two questions on that point. One, Kelly Kwan has a great question, and I want to add to it. So there seems to be some murkiness around the accountability factor, right? So this is a state bill that's coming down, and there haven't really been many funds appropriated to its rollout and I don't know, sustenance, if you will. Who is going to hold the HOAs or investment property owners accountable to meet the deadlines and to get the work done in those timelines that you mentioned, the $500 per element per day? Who's going to make sure that A, the buildings get inspected, B, that there's a scope of work that is that has been determined and that it has to get done in a certain amount of time? Who's doing that? And if it's not happening at the local level, at the city level, or even the county level, like then is the state going to be managing that? So, you would mention that if it goes to the city building department, well, that, if they're not going to enforce it, who is?
So the enforcement is the part that is a little gray. For the moment, they have defined a timing and define structure. The building department at this point is not enforcing, although they have the tools to do it, because with their JES department, they know who the owners are, how many decks, how many appendices, exterior elevated elements there are, and they have a point of contact. So they know everything. The moment that they decide that they want to have that, they want to spend the money, the time, the effort to start fining, and the fine is high. If you think about it, from January 1st, 2025, for one of the bills is $500 a day per deck. If they really realize that they want to gather all their fines, at this point, it starts to be interesting from an economical perspective.
There's a note here. Great Escape Inspections says for SB 721, there are some counties or cities that require an affidavit of compliance to be submitted to the city building department, such as Berkeley and Oakland. They provided a link in the chat there. You have to keep the report with the buildings documents for 2 inspection cycles, which would be 12 years. So it is happening in some places, but on that note, I know that Oakland, for example, has a paint permit, right? That if you're going to do any paint work that may or may not include lead, there has to be a lead certified paint person and then an inspection to get a permit. Well, nobody's doing, some people are doing it, but again, without the enforcement, it seems not to have teeth. But I think I want to just go back to the very beginning of your presentation where you said this isn't so much about permits and dollars. It's about safety and lives, right? And that's I think that's a really important frame for us to consider as we go forth.
That's right. This is the spirit behind this law. Everybody was hurt when this happened. and they created specifically to have that type to avoid that type of condition. It was a sudden collapse during a moment of happiness. It was a party. There were young people over there, and it was extremely dramatic. So they created this specifically to avoid that type of condition. So if we have that condition, um, we should just tell them, look, something eventually is going to happen. Wood doesn't last forever, especially if it's hidden behind the architectural finish. We don't know what is behind. I wouldn't put a load of a party, which is, by the way, is the design load. When engineers design a balcony, they assume there is a party. That's exactly the design load. So when the structure is like 50 years old, and who knows what type of history it had, and there is this balcony there, and they're having a party, something most likely is going to happen when they're that old. And it doesn't need to happen to the beams. It can happen to the parapets, to the handrail, and that can come down. So there are lots of parts in all this.
A few quick things. Hugh asks, is it recommended that SB326 and 604 inspections be done simultaneously by the same inspection company? That seems like the answer would be yes. And Donna, yes, the presentation will be available on the SFAR video library website. A great question. And there's also a request for you to go back to the slide that shows a brief explanation of the two bills, the 326 and 721, if you could scoot back.
Something like this?
I believe so. Yeah, she said thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. So we have just a couple minutes. Would love to take any more questions. Everybody's been so great with putting questions in the Q&A. It makes our work here really much easier and streamlined. So thank you.
Yeah, and also thank you for. I mean, I appreciate the questions and also staying on the subject specifically. This is great. And if more questions are going to rise now or later, I also like to offer generally what I call the coffee with engineer, which was the slide I had before, which is just some time that I provide pro bono to answer any question that you possibly have for an engineer, to understand if engineer is the right decision for you guys, or if you just want to run a few questions through me. It's going to be like every Tuesday from 9 to 12 on my website. I had information to connect with me. Feel free to RSVP and RSVP, and I'm available for questions.
Great. And Vincenzo, people would like your contact info. Do you have that slide, or I could put your phone number in the chat?
Oh yes, yes. I don't have the slide there. All right. Oh yes, I have a slide. Yeah. Want to take a photo of this?
Great. Yeah, take a screenshot of that, everybody, or
Screenshot of
use the
this.
QR code.
There's the QR code. There is the website. There is the telephone number.
Two quick questions. If there's a roof deck that does not stick out over the edge of the building, is that considered an exterior elevated element, or no, because it doesn't have 6 feet of height above its base?
I like to frame the answer with two main points. The first one is it needs to be 6 feet above the ground, okay, to be included. If it's less, it's excluded independently from anything else. Okay, so assuming that it's above 6 feet from the ground, and we need to look at the foundation line, and I generally look at the roof line. What I suggest doing is, if you have conditions with a deck that is inside, connect with a specialist. He's gonna tell you if that is included or not. because the description of how to exclude it is a little bit complicated, a kind of technical. It refers to the exterior envelope. It refers to the protection from the elements, and if it gets, wet and dry often. So there is a geometric component. There is also a kind of a weather exposure to elements component.
Great.
Definitely.
Two quick questions. Does deck check also do the 604 inspection?
Yes, it does.
And there's a question, approximately what do these inspections cost?
Okay. So there is the cost is about $500 per deck, and a minimum of $1,500 to start the process. There are discounts for higher numbers deck. Everything is in my website, and just also feel free to give me a call to discuss specific conditions.
Great. Okay, last question, anonymous attendee, if I would just get in touch with Vincenzo at the information there on the screen. That's probably the best way to go. Okay, well, we are a little bit over time. I want to thank, we had over 70 attendees today, which is great. I'm so glad that you were here, Vincenzo, to share all this with us. I think we packed a lot in an hour. Thank you, everybody, for your engagement, your curiosity. It's really wonderful to see people wanting to improve their practice and best advocate for their clients. So thank you for your support of our webinar series and our events in general. Vincenzo, any last words?
Oh, I'm so happy to be here and connected with you guys. My pleasure.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Hope everybody has a great day, and thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.